Let me start with something that might hit a nerve. What if shame isn't who you are, but something you learn to carry? Because some of us don't just feel shame sometimes. We live in shame, we breathe it, we introduce ourselves with it. We say things like, yeah, I'm just stupid like that. I always ruin everything. I don't deserve better. I am what happened to me. And it sounds normal because you've been speaking shame fluently for so long, you forgot it was a foreign language you learned in survival. So today I want to ask you, who told you that your worst moment was your identity? Because shame is not your name. Shame is not your DNA. Shame is not your personality trait. Shame is a weight you were taught to wear. And today we're putting it down. Hey, my beautiful people, welcome back. This is day 2 of our 28-day self-forgiveness journey. And if day 1 was about facing the truth we've been avoiding, day 2 is about what shows up after the truth. Shame. That heavy, sticky feeling that doesn't just say, you made a mistake, but whispers, you are the mistake. And this episode is called Shame Isn't a Personality Trait, because somewhere along the way, many of us stopped seeing shame as a feeling and started wearing it like a skin. I know this personally. There was a time in my life when shame didn't visit me. It lived with me, paid rent, had a key to my mind. I could be smiling on the outside and still feel like a fraud underneath. I could be doing well and still hear that voice saying, don't get too comfortable, you always mess things up. And it took me a long time to understand something. That voice was not my truth. That voice was my conditioning. So today I'm going to break this down with you like we're sitting on the couch together. We're going to talk about what shame really is, where it comes from, how it keeps us stuck, and how to start separating who you are from what you've been through. By the end of this episode, I want you to feel lighter. I want you to feel seen, and I want you to walk away knowing you are not shame. You are a human being who has carried too much for too long. Let's go there. So let's define shame in plain, soulful language. Shame is the belief that you are fundamentally flawed, unworthy, or broken. Not because of what you did, but because of who you think you are. Guilt says, something I did was wrong. Shame says, something about me is wrong. And that difference matters because guilt can lead to growth. Shame leads to hiding. Shame makes you shrink. Shame makes you perform. Shame makes you over-explain. Shame makes you accept the bare minimum because deep down you don't believe you deserve more. And here's the brutal part. Shame convinces you that punishment is the same thing as accountability. So instead of learning, you suffer. Instead of healing, you hate yourself. Instead of evolving, you stay trapped in the same story. Let me ask you something. What happens when we keep shame as a roommate in our spirit? We stop trying. We stop trusting. We stop hoping. We keep ourselves small so nobody can reject us, but then we reject ourselves first. That's why we're talking about this today, because self-forgiveness cannot grow in shame soil. Let me tell you the truth about how shame had me in a chokehold. There was a season where I looked back at choices I made, relationships I stayed in too long, things I tolerated, ways I betrayed my own needs, and I didn't just feel regret. I felt disgust with myself. I'd replay moments in my head and think, how could you be that dumb? How could you allow that? What kind of woman does that? And I need you to hear me. That wasn't accountability. That was shame wearing a judge's robe because I was not talking to myself like someone who wanted me to heal. I was talking to myself like someone who wanted me to suffer. And what did that do? It kept me stuck. Because when you believe you're broken, you keep choosing things that match that belief. I didn't think I deserved healthy love, so I kept accepting chaotic love. I didn't think I deserved tenderness, so I stayed where I had to beg for softness. I didn't think I deserved peace, so I kept choosing survival. And the wild part is, I wasn't born believing that about myself. Shame was taught. It came from moments like being blamed for things that weren't my fault, being criticized more than I was comforted, being taught that my needs were too much, being loved only when I performed, being punished without being understood. So I internalized this message. If I'm hurting, it must be because I'm the problem. And baby, that message runs deep. But here's the shift. One day I realized I was treating my pain like evidence that I was unworthy. Instead of seeing the truth, I was wounded, I was scared, I was surviving. I was craving love in all the wrong places because nobody taught me how to give it to myself. So I had to separate these two things. I'm not proud of every choice I made, but I am also not the worst thing I ever did. Whew. That sentence right there, that changed my life. Because shame tries to glue you to your past. Self forgiveness says, this happened, and I'm still allowed to become. All right, let's walk through this together. Day 2 is about unblending from shame, meaning stop treating shame like it's who you are. Here's how. Step 1, catch the shame language. Listen to how you talk about yourself. Shame sounds like, I always, I never, I'm just, that's who I am. I don't deserve. Start noticing the patterns, not judging them, not fighting them, just noticing, because awareness breaks the spell. Step 2, name shame as a feeling, not a fact. When shame shows up, say, this is shame, not, this is me. For example, instead of, I am horrible, try, I'm feeling shame about that. Language matters. It creates space. Step 3, ask, where did I learn this? Shame is almost never original. Ask yourself, whose voice does this sound like? Where did I learn to see myself this way? Who taught me that mistakes mean I'm unworthy? That question doesn't excuse anything. It explains things. An explanation opens the door to compassion. Step 4, speak to yourself like someone you love. If your best friend told you their worst mistake, you wouldn't say, you're trash, you should suffer forever. So why do you talk to yourself like that? Try this. Put your hand on your chest and say, I made choices in pain. I didn't have what I needed then, but I'm learning now. That is self-forgiveness in action. Step 5, practice the and. Shame makes everything one-dimensional. Self-forgiveness is layered. So practice saying, I regret that and I'm still worthy. I was wrong and I can grow. I hurt someone and I'm not evil. I don't like that version of me and I honor what she survived. That word and is a bridge back to yourself. Let's talk about what happens when you stop wearing shame as your identity. You stop punishing yourself for being human. You stop living like you owe suffering to prove you've learned. You learn without bleeding. You develop healthy accountability. You can own your choices without drowning in self-hate because shame doesn't create change. Safety does. You stop repeating the same cycles. When shame leaves, clarity enters. You begin to choose differently because you believe you deserve differently. You become emotionally free, not because the past disappears, but because it no longer controls who you think you are. Now listen, pitfall check. Pitfall number 1, you might confuse releasing shame with avoiding responsibility. No, we're not doing denial. We're doing truth without torture. Pitfall number 2, you might think you have to feel worthy before you act worthy. No, baby. You act your way into worthiness. You practice your way into peace. Let's land this with truth. Shame is not a personality trait. It is a wound response, a survival strategy, a learned script. You are not shame. You are not your worst moment. You are not the version of you who didn't know what you know now. You are not the coping mechanism you had to become. You are a whole human being who has been carrying judgment when what you really needed was compassion. So here's your day 2 affirmation. I release the belief that my mistakes define me. I am allowed to grow in love, not shame. Say it again. I release the belief that my mistakes define me. I am allowed to grow in love, not shame. You do not have to earn your right to heal. You already belong here. Thank you for being here with me today. I know these conversations are deep, but I also know you're ready. If this episode helped you breathe a little easier, go ahead and share it with somebody you love or somebody you used to love who still needs it, okay? We're spreading freedom, not perfection. Make sure you follow the podcast so you stay connected to every day of this journey. And come visit me at https://www.wayofthewiseowl.com for more resources and support. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'll meet you tomorrow for day 3. Until then, don't wear shame like a name tag. Wear truth like a crown. Talk soon.